do you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. If I can get myself out of this illness situation and get my health back, I'm going to make a life change. Irresponsible Pete, they call me. Clay is one of those things where the creativity evolves because it changes. And then, of course, the Great Pottery Throwdown happened, and then that all changed. Anybody that's self-motivated can do it.
Hi, I'm Claire, founder of Open Stage Arts drama and singing classes for adults. Lots of the adults who come to our classes and online events are looking for a creativity that has been put on the back burner during their sensible grown-up years. I have found this to be true among other creatives too, so I've decided to find out more about the painters, photographers, writers, printmakers, actors, crafters, teachers, musicians and more that have found or refound their creativity later in life. Today I'm speaking with Peter White, who began studying for a BA in ceramics in his late 40s and in 2021 was a finalist on TV's The Great Pottery Throwdown. He has had an interesting and emotional journey in life and on the show, and is passionate about inspiring others to tap into their own creativity, no matter what their age. Hi Peter.
Hello Claire, lovely to meet you again.
And you. Lots of people know you as a potter through your studio, Woburn Sands Clay, and of course from the television show The Great Pottery Throwdown. But it wasn't until you were in your late 40s that you were able to follow this creative path. We'll talk about what you were doing before ceramics became your thing. But before that, tell me about your childhood and whether you had an arty upbringing.
Right, okay Claire. So I had quite an unusual upbringing. I had 3 sisters. My father was an engineer. My mother was a midwife. And my father, he worked for the space industry intermittently, and so it involved him moving around the world. So probably when I was 8 or 9, we jumped aboard ship and we travelled around the world. We ended up in Australia, where we stayed in Australia for about 4 years, maybe a little bit longer. And my father worked in Woomera. I was always very interested. I was always painting and making. I was the child that took everything apart and put it back together, or mainly. So I think my sisters realised that I was quite arty. I went through school. I was okay at school. I wasn't an A1 student, but I was okay. And I had an art teacher called Mrs. Brown, who clearly thought that I had something to offer. And when I was doing my O-levels and A-levels at the time, I did the work for that. And what happened was Mrs. Brown did a small exhibition for me. And from that, I was offered a place at an art school on a small bursary. And I went home and said, "Hey, Dad, look, this is what's happened. I'm going to art school." And he said, "No, you're not." And you have to remember that back in the 60s and 70s, your parents had a great influence. And my father being ex-military, being an engineer, my grandfather being an engineer, I was a little bit controlled, I suppose, by my parents. And I can remember my father saying, "No long-haired students in my house, no arty people. I don't know what messing about. You're going to be an engineer like me, and I've arranged some interviews for you." And I went, "Do you know what? Fine, okay." I went to tell Mrs. Brown. And she, clearly she went, "Well, that's a shame, but." And so I went into engineering, and I became an engineer. I did an engineering apprenticeship. I worked at the drawing office, and I moved around, and I did it wholeheartedly and with pleasure. But I still dabbled with art. I still, made things, did a bit of painting. So that was always there. And it was always a little bit strange because to be an engineer and to be an artist, that's quite a conflict of areas. And within my work, within my artwork, there was a lot of accuracy. Within my engineering work, there was a little bit of flamboyance, so which used to get me in a little bit of trouble. I worked for several different design companies, and eventually I started my own business. And purely off the hoof, somebody came in. The company was in Luton, in Bedfordshire, and we're quite near the motorway. And this chap came off the motorway, and he just stopped the engineering company for whatever reason and asked us to do a small job. And that was my link to children's toys. He introduced himself, and it was a company that were linked to Fisher-Price and one or two other companies. And we started making prototypes. I was in my element then. So we had the model shop, and I ran that particular part of it. So I never sort of avoided the engineering side, and I never avoided the creative side.
Since you're working with toys, did you have some creativity within that job?
Well, that's an interesting one because it's the nature of the beast, isn't it? I don't know if it's the nature of the beast, it's the nature of me, where I would look at drawings and I would interpret the drawings, not necessarily how the toy designer would envisage it. But you also have to remember, we didn't have computers. Everything was done with paper, telephone, fax machines. So I suppose for me it was great because I could deviate from the origin. And when I made the models and everything, I could change the colours to primary colours, and I would look at the target age group and then go, oh no, that's not quite right. And quite often I got away with it, and which was quite good because it became a situation where people began to rely on my knowledge and the fact that I did used to go a little bit off piste, if you like. Not always, but yeah, a lot of the time it worked very well.
So you mentioned that you were dabbling with your own creativity at home as well during this time. What were you doing?
Right, so I love illustration. So I did a lot of watercolor work. Did illustration, and I did one or two plaster molds and plaster models, basically for the engineering side of it, and also for the fact that I could creatively change mold and adapt things as I progressed. I mean, of course, anything I drew or anything I painted went out into the family, and that still hasn't stopped. It still goes really quickly. But it's about having value, and I've never seen a great value in my work, I suppose. My belief has always been, to share it. I mean, I can't keep all this work, so it's great to go out to friends and family. And
I know that at that time you made your own wheel. Tell me about the wheel that you made.
well, that's a really interesting one because what happened was I had this engineering company. I'd got a nice house. I had a little workshop at the end of it, and I sort of got this interest in pottery. I thought, I'm going to have a go at this. You see, so remember there was no internet. There weren't a lot of books about that explained it, and so I thought, well, I'm an engineer. What I'll do is I'll design and we'll make a potter's wheel, and I'll put a potter's wheel in my workshop, and I'll throw pottery. Now, I'd never touched a bit of clay before in my life, apart from what I did with Mrs. Brown with the kick wheel, and I made the wheel, we installed it, I bought a cheap kiln, and off I went. So, there are a few mistakes, of course, but I was producing work. I was making pots quite successfully. And a friend who was part of the engineering company that I had, he'd been a pottery teacher long time ago. And he came up and he was looking at my pots. And he goes, oh, these look fantastic, And he came one day and I was on the potter's wheel, and he said, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? What am I doing? And he said, well, the wheel's going the wrong way. And he said, the average potter's wheel does about 250 RPM. And he said, what's that one doing? I said, 600. And he said, it's like watching things in fast forward. And so we had this little chuckle. So then we changed everything. He stayed with me and he showed me the proper way to do it. And then off I went. Then it was fine. But
How different is it to throw in the other direction? If you'd been got used to throwing in one direction and the wheel goes in the other direction.
that's like really strange because see what happens is I'm right-handed, so my left hand goes into the pot, okay, and my right hand sits outside, and then you marry like your two hands mirror each other. So you would pinch the clay, and draw the clay up toward the center. But when it's going the other way, of course, your right hand is in the pot and your left hand is outside. So you suddenly become ambidextrous, but by default.
Yeah.
But I got used to it. And of course, it being so fast, I was putting my hand in, zoop, but what it meant was that when things went wrong, it went wrong really, really badly. Because at 600 plus RPM, if that went a bit floppy, you know, all the walls had a bit, I had a bit, I was eating it, I was wearing it. But it was crazy halcyon days. It was good fun.
Brilliant. So you were 20 years or so working in engineering, but how did dabbling with clay turn into studying ceramics at BA and MA level? And do you think you faced particular struggles at university because you were slightly older than the other students?
Well, Claire, do you know what? Age, once again, is nothing to do with this. I've always been a character where I've always got on well with young people, my grandchildren. My children think I'm worse than the grandchildren. I'm totally irresponsible. I love a laugh. And I think for me, I had a change in my life. The business was doing really, really well. We were growing, the company was growing. I was spending all my time at work. I'd have worked 24/7. It was nothing to do with earning money. It's something in our psyche about moving forward, about being successful. And of course, that resulted in the inevitable heart attack on Christmas Eve, which was good fun for the family. Um, so that sort of slowed me down. But fortunately, I didn't need surgery. They sorted it all out. And I was lying in hospital, and I was analysing. You can only do this in like an unknown situation, like hospitalisation, where you have a lot of time, a lot of thought. And I thought, you know what? I don't even like this bloke. And I thought, you're building this business. You're sort of, driving like a speed rope through the water. You're hurting people. You're just, it's all about ambition. And I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. If I can get myself out of this situation, this illness situation, and get my health back, I'm going to make a life change. And I did make a life change. And I sold my part of the business, and I sort of virtually gave it away. Actually, I didn't make hardly any money on it, but we were secure enough to carry on. And I suppose the term, I bummed about for a while, about 6 months. And everybody's going, but what are you going to do? I can remember my mother, when I said, oh, I've got rid of the business. And she went, oh, okay, what are you going to do? And I don't know. She went, oh my, what? How mothers do. Still up arms, calm down. And so I thought, do you know what? It was my younger sister, Angela, who said, look, you're very passionate about art. Why don't you do something to go into art, go that way? And I thought, do you know what? I'm making pots. What I could do with it is looking at it a bit more in depth. So I ended up at Middlesex University, and that's where I did my BA with honours, and then went on and did an MA in connection with tableware. And that's how it all came about, really. And then, but I joined university, and I joined with a group of very young people, but they weren't all young. And I sort of decided at that time that I'm quite okay with young people. I'm not down in the groove or anything like that, but I think I've got an empathy, so it was okay. I mean, I supported them. I cherished their young ideas. I challenged some of the non-conventional ideas and said, do you realise, But I tried at all times to avoid being a mother hen. So that worked quite well. And then, of course, when I wanted to do the MA, it was a more mature-based MA, so it was a lot of written work. And and that's how it all came about. And then I left university and then bummed about again.
So you didn't know what you wanted to do once the studies were finished.
No, irresponsible Pete, they call me. but it's not that. It's, do you know what? I still don't know what I want to do in my life. I really, really don't. I'm really happy in developing my skills, developing my creative side. But if somebody said, if my mother was alive and she said, Peter, what are you doing? I'd go, I don't know, Mum. I'm just I'm riding life, as it were, with my children, my family. And So yeah, so that's it really.
But you did start teaching. How did that come about?
The teaching thing, how lovely was that? So okay, so I got some friends who are teachers, and they said, "Oh, could you bring your wheel into school and do a couple of days teaching?" And so they did all the checks and everything, and off I went into these schools. And I did more than a couple of days. I was there 2 or 3 weeks at one school, and the head was involved in a couple of these lessons as well, just for a bit of fun. And then he said to me, he said, "You have thought about becoming a teacher?" And I went, "I don't need loads more work." And he said, "No, it's really easy. It's really straightforward. You'll be very good." So, well, there's not lots of work involved. He went, "No, no, 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 no." Oh, could have killed him. Well, of course, it's very difficult. To become a teacher is quite hard. You're writing essays about Piaget and on ethics and and all this. You think, oh, how did I get involved in this? Once that was all over and I got into the classroom, then it all clicked again. That was something I found that I also loved. So then I had the ability to teach art and design. I taught a bit of maths. I taught product design, and then I taught engineering. So I had like a gambit that sort of ran, with all the links. I got involved with this school in a big way. I then changed schools. I joined a school in Milton Keynes, massive school. I had a cohort at the time of nearly 3,000. It was the largest school in Europe. Had a lovely, lovely ethos where the children came in their own clothes. They called you by your first name, which was a little unusual, but it worked. It worked very, very well. It had art college status. I was head of visual arts. We had a gallery, and it was wonderful, and it was fantastic. And I'm still teaching now. I only do 2 days now, but I do product design and a little bit of art. But it's a beautiful school, and I love it. I love the school, and the students are lovely.
Brilliant.
You know.
So, as well as teaching every week, there is also, of course, Woburn Sands Clay, which is very much a family affair. How did you move from, as you said earlier, making pots for friends to starting a pottery business? And if I may ask, how do you work together with your family without falling out?
I'll answer that one last. Okay, so just before I went onto the show, I built a studio, and it's only 3.5 meters by 3.5 meters. It's a wooden studio, but I backed it onto the front of our garage. So it's a modern house. It's only been built 10 years, so it's like a cardboard box. And they put these garages up where you can get a motorbike in, but you can't get a car in. Where you can get out, you can get it in, but you can't get out. Yeah, so we got the studio going. I then started making pottery. I was making pottery. It was prolific. And I think, I was turning up to people's houses and they're going, "Oh, I hope he hasn't got any pottery." No, I'm sure they won't. But that's kind of how I felt. And it sort of progressed from there. So what happened was my daughter, Hannah, said, "Look, we need to be selling some of this stuff." That was the discussion. And then, of course, the Great Pottery Throwdown happened. And then that all changed,
So, presumably, that's been good for business.
It has, yes. As the finalist in the Great Pottery Throwdown, it's been good. I think people make an association that they like your work with your name on it, and it's like the commissions that I'm doing. People are more interested in getting your name, and the date. Of course, they want a beautiful piece of work. It's like a combination of the both. But what it has done is, I mean, through media and the television, I'm a face now, and it's bizarre because I'm recognised in like all food shops. Always when I'm shopping, they must think this bloke does nothing but shopping. Say in a co-op in Tesco, and bizarrely the other day, a couple pulled up in a car and they were asking for a street that's quite local to us. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll explain where it is." And then right out of the blue, he went, "You're Peter off the telly." Oh my goodness me, it's Peter. And I went, "Oh, hello." We had this chat, and I'm trying to get out, and they blocked the driveway, and they were going to get all the information out they could. Well, and that was absolutely lovely. But then the other day, I went to fill up a gas cylinder because I need propane gas for my kiln because I have a raku kiln, you see. And all of a sudden, this lady, Katie, her name is, and she's lovely, and she was chatting away, and she was smiling, and you could see that she was going, "I'm sure I know, sure I know, sure I know." And one of the lads from the yard came up and said to me, "You know who that is, don't you?" And he went, "Peter." And she went, Peter the Potter." And next thing you know, she's going, "You're Peter off the telly, aren't you?" I went, "Yes, yeah." And it was lovely. It's absolutely adorable, you know.
So you're avoiding the question about working with family then?
Oh, did I? Yes. I knew I was going to go back to that. Okay. What's it like working with family? Okay, so I have a fantastic family. We're a big family, well, 10 grandchildren. But my daughter, who you've spoken to, Hannah, she does all the social media. She does all the website. She's absolutely fabulous. She does all that. Jill does, my wife does, like all the packaging, does all the organisation. She runs a very busy house. She looks after the grandchildren. She looks after everybody. She has a massive job. She's head of a design faculty at the school where I work. Of course, we have our, I have my methods. Not everybody's the same. There's always a little bit of friction. But on the main, it's pretty good, and we can always sort of discuss it as families discuss things, if you can imagine what I mean. And I always lose. But, it's been very good. I've been amazed by how lovely it is. We have a photographer in the family, so he comes in and he does the photography, takes it off, edits it, puts it back to Hannah. She does all the final editing and puts it on the website. And it's brilliant. And I just got to produce.
Oh, brilliant. I love sharing my guests' stories with you, but podcasting isn't cheap. There are hosting fees and software costs, tech to buy, and time to invest in planning and editing to make sure the guests sound great and listeners hear the best content. If you'd like to financially support Creativity Found, please visit ko-fi.com/creativityfoundpodcast. Now back to the show, and I wanted to find out more about Peter's kilns.
So what I have is, I've got a friend called Bob who, when I was at school, when I was head of visual arts, I met him, and he used to service our kilns at school. When I started the studio, I contacted Bob and said, if you hear of any kilns going, can let me know. And the way schools are about being creative, we're in a situation where schools are trying to get rid of that kind of stuff. So I managed to buy 2 second-hand kilns, big electric kilns, that went into the garage. So they don't, and I put an extractor in, they don't interfere at all with the production area, with the wheels and my teaching area. Then we decided to look at doing raku work, just experimenting with raku. I got a galvanised dustbin, and I fibre lined it, and I made all the burners and everything, and I made a raku kiln.
Oh.
And that's, and it's good fun. But, oh my goodness, you smell like a bonfire. It's not very romantic,
Did you do that before the show?
The raku, no, that came afterwards. Yeah, because we did naked raku on one of the episodes, and I thought, "Ooh, this is like good fun,"
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome, thank you. You are 70 years old, and I know you are busier than ever. What keeps you going?
Do you know, Claire, I'm not 70 in my head. My body is 70, and I get up some mornings and go, "Oh my goodness me, what's happening?" But when I get going, I'm fine. I'm a great believer in progress. Age is only a number. Keep that motivation going. It's like I was saying earlier, that I don't know what I want to do. I still don't know what I should be doing in my life. So I continually progress. And I make unusual lights. I skip dive, and so I make and create anything that I can. It's only the fact that the body's a little bit rusty now, but the engine's got 100,000 miles on it, and that's what I believe. We should all be wherever we possibly can. We've all got something in us, haven't we? Something more than, I'm retiring now, I rest up. No, you don't. Get out there, get walking, look at the world. Stop moaning, have a go. And you can have to go really cheaply, buy a 2B pencil and a drawing pad, go for a walk and draw what you see. Nobody there to judge you, only you, just have a good time. Anybody that's self-motivated can do it. Get out and have a go.
Perfect. I know that you still like to experiment with your clays and your glazes. I also know that you have commissions and you have work to do for the website. How do you figure it all into your time that you can do the stuff that needs to be done and you can still have your creative experiment? Are you a super duper time management person or do you go with the flow?
I'm very good at time management. I tend to plan a couple of days ahead. Things like commissions are really, really important. They're important to me, very, very important to the person that asked you to do the commission. So it has to take priority. People you're working for personally, it has to take priority, and you just sort of fit everything else in around it. And that's why I'm considering retiring from school, and that will give me the full 7 days to work on,
But you can still balance the enjoyment and the creativity and the passion for the craft.
You have to have a passion for the craft. I mean, clay is one of those things where the creativity evolves because it changes, and you can develop that creativity as you're moulding it. So you may start out with one idea, but then as you're going, oh, I could try that, I could develop, and it moves along. And the great thing about ceramics and clay is the combination. It's experimenting with the science of clay, experimenting with the science of glazes and lustres and raku glazes. That's all exciting. It's all moving along, but it all has to be fitted in. So you sort of have to give yourself a bit of a mini time check. I have whiteboards in the studio and in the office where I sort of do a plan, and then of course my wife Jill and my daughter Hannah, they pop things in. We're going to do this, and you need to have that done by then. And and by the way, we're going to do a TikTok this afternoon. More camera time. I hate cameras, But yeah, so.
How do you feel when you create something new and you show it, whether to your family or the wider public? By which I mean, have you found a confidence or are you nervous about sharing what you've made?
Do you know that's quite interesting? It's a really interesting question, and it works a bit like this. I think prior to being on a throwdown, I didn't quite have that confidence. I'm not a very confident person anyway, really, about the things that I do. And I think that anybody will tell you I haven't yet found anything that I really, really like. I'm really super critical. And friends and family going, "You're kidding, that's absolutely beautiful. I love that, it's fantastic." But I'm always striving for the next thing. And I don't know if that next thing actually exists. I'm doing this really, really big commission for some friends of ours for their anniversary. And I've had a couple of attempts because I had one blow up in the kiln. And so I did the second one yesterday. And that was satisfying. It's nearly 700 millimeters high. And I've thrown it on the wheel in 2 parts. And I sort of looked at that. And Jill came in last night, and Hannah, and they were looking at it and going, "Oh, it's not quite the shape she's asked for." So I thought, no, but I'll modify it. So by the time they saw it this morning, I'd modified it and I'd got it all back. And I thought, yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I've got to get it through 2 firings, but yeah. So I am getting more confident, definitely, and my throwing skills are developing as well, which is good.
Brilliant. So you're back home now, throwdown is over, back to some kind of normality, possibly. What are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future are, apart from going on holiday and crazy times, my plans for the future is to continue developing the business. I want to open the studio up to people coming in that want to learn a new skill. I'm going to offer drawing workshops, painting workshops, mainly pottery workshops. So the workshop will take 2 people. And I suppose I'm not looking for people to join me that have great pottery knowledge and are just looking for a workshop to use. I'm looking for those people that want to be inspired, young or old. Like I say, we've got disabilities in the family, and that's great to work with them. Let them make. So, yeah, I want to carry on with that. And also, I want to develop my portfolio. I want to, there is a very, very serious side to me, and I would like to get my work into some galleries. I mean, my work is reasonably priced. I think it's very important for everybody to share that. I'm not looking for fame or anything like that. I'm just worth, I suppose, and to share that idea, and to share that creativity, to share that madness that is me. I watched this thing last night about Giacometti, and I thought, yeah, it's very much like me. Both a couple of lunatics, but in a nice way.
Brilliant. Peter, how can people connect with you?
Okay, well, there's a couple of ways of getting in touch with me. Go to the website, which is all brand new. It's all fantastic. www.wovensandsclay.com. You can see all my work. I put everything up there, and you can contact me through. There's a contact page, and please do. Or Instagram at woven_sands_clay. And then Facebook at Woven Sands Clay. Please, any information, write in or Insta in or whatever it is, or Facebook in. I'm an open book.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Peter.
Thank you, Claire. That was a lovely time. Thank you.
Listen in to the next episode to hear all about Peter's experiences on the Great Pottery Throwdown. Creativity Found is an Open Stage Arts production. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please feel free to subscribe, rate and review. If you would like to help fund future episodes, you can buy us a coffee. That's ko-fi, the online platform that helps creators receive financial support from fans of their work. Visit ko-fi.com/creativityfoundpodcast. If you have found your creativity as an adult and would like to talk to me for future episodes, drop me a line at claire@openstagearts.co.uk. On Instagram or Facebook, follow @creativityfoundpodcast, where you will find photos of our contributors' artworks and be kept abreast of everything we're up to.